As a class teacher, what I'm doing now compared to what I was doing this time last year is not radically different. So, as I like to say to the children, really good job, well done, but how can we make this even better still? And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about just making tweaks so that my role maximises the teaching and learning and the experiences for the children.
Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Talks on Ed, and we will be looking in this series at the reopening of schools after the COVID-19 pandemic. Today in the studio I'm welcoming Hannah Bradley, who is a teacher at the deputy head and a class teacher at St Andrews International Primary School in Malawi, and we're going to be exploring what the school looks like in a post-pandemic world. And of course the pandemic has been the catalyst to have a look at our curriculum and review what it is that we can do better in the curriculum, but also to make sure that we are giving the children the rich experiences and even richer experiences than we had before. So welcome, Hannah.
Thank you.
And a few questions as always, and we'll start off just by seeing how you feel you as a teacher fit into a new structure of learning.
Okay, so I think the first thing to say is that as a class teacher, what I'm doing now compared to what I was doing this time last year is not radically different. So, as I like to say to the children, really good job, well done, but how can we make this even better still? And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about just making tweaks so that my role maximises the teaching and learning and the experiences for the children. So the model that we had for our curriculum before and still have now is about looking at blooms and making sure that the children start with that knowledge, that secure knowledge base, and then they're going to apply it, evaluate it, and eventually hopefully be really creative with that knowledge. We've always done that, but what we've asked ourselves is what was the major barrier to children spending more time right at the top compared to time at the bottom? And for me, as a class teacher, the major barrier was time, like my time, but also the children's time. Like there were many constraints on the school day that meant that collectively we didn't have the time to get to that top point. So what's changed for me is really where my time goes. And so instead of using my time in the bottom of blooms, we can use...
Which are the more kind of basic activities?
Basic activities. I'm just acquiring knowledge.
Yeah.
Now that's something that we're starting to do more and more, not necessarily by me in person, but by bespoke resources that I've created that the children can access independently. And that also allows those children who need more time there to spend more time there. Those children who don't can move on more rapidly. And then me, as a class teacher, spend my time in the kind of the middle and the top parts of blooms. And the example that we can talk about is that for quite a long time now I've been trying to teach myself to crochet, and I do it with YouTube videos. Now the reason why I'm not very good at crochet is that a YouTube video only helps me so far. So I can learn the basic skills of crochet from a YouTube video, but when I get stuck, it can't do very much for me. If actually I want to be really creative with my crochet, it can't do very much for me. So what we're trying to do as a class teacher is I don't want to be the YouTube video because, there are other things that can do that. I want to be there for the children when they're stuck so that I can move them on, or the children when they need broadening and deepening and extending and challenging. And that's where I need to spend my time. And then the other thing to talk about there is, making sure that the children have more time in the middle and the top of blooms. And
I've just scribbled down a thought here.
Okay.
It occurred to me that we've come through a period of closure, a significant period of closure, where the children have developed skills that they wouldn't have had before.
Completely.
What skills do you think the children have had that will help this new model be effective?
Well, so I can tell you already that, the year twos, my year twos have been back in school now for 2 weeks, and they are showing really clearly that they've got an ability to use, media to support their learning in a way that they just didn't have before. So, we're talking about I can prepare bespoke resources for them to help them with the bottom level of Blooms, and that's what we've been doing.
Yeah.
Little videos that they can watch independently, and what they're showing is that they can play it, they can pause it, they can take information from it, they can use that to help them get that information without me needing to be there. And that's something that they just couldn't do before. They've just got so much better at taking information from a screen in that kind of a way without a person there supporting them. Their independent learning skills when they're using those things are just way beyond what they were before. Like I wouldn't, having taught year 2 before, I wouldn't imagine that I could leave like a group of children with, some laptops to work independently, to pause things and get information and respond to questions and stuff. But they're totally doing that. They're on it, and it's really good.
That's fantastic. I mean, that's a benefit of the school closure and of course the Google Classroom that we had before.
But also that's what we're talking about, which is they've got these new skills. We need to use them and build on them and use them to our advantage.
That's brilliant, and I mean certainly we see that around the school now. The children seem to be far more independent at working in small groups, etc. So tell me a little bit about specialist teaching, because at this school I know we're fortunate enough to have several specialist teachers for subjects like French and art and things like that. How do you see the specialist teacher's role changing in this new model of learning? Okay,
so again, it just comes straight back to that. What was that barrier? It was time. Now, as a class teacher, it was like I lost time. That's not fair, but my time was very rigidly defined because there's art here, there's ICT here, there's sport here, there's music here, and those things, whilst they sort of maybe fed into what we were doing, they were running parallel. So what we've done now is bring them in so that they are very much an active part of what we're doing every day in class. So that's one thing. And also in doing that, it does exactly what I've done as a class teacher, but for the specialists, which is, what do we say? We don't want to use them at the bottom of Blooms because actually I as a class teacher can do some of that. Again, they can prepare resources that the children can use to do that independently. They're going to come in, further up, which allows them to support those children who need a bit of extra support, or more importantly, when it comes to the application and the creative side of that. So now, I'm working much more with the specialist teachers rather than alongside them. Sometimes they're in my classroom with me and we're doing rotations with the children together, and it just gives that richer experience and it gives more time. And also, it's that total immersion for the children in what they're doing.
As a kind of a collective of subjects,
rather than individual. And which then allows that application of knowledge further up Blooms and that creativity with knowledge further up Blooms.
So if we look at French as an example. Okay. And I know French is relatively new in year 2 at this school, but previously, we might have had a whole French lesson where the children were all learning at a certain level, and of course, French being the subject that we teach our modern foreign languages through. But how do you see the French teacher actually working with children to push them on as individuals, as opposed to how she could have done before?
So, exactly as we're saying, which is that what she will do or can do is take those children who are gifted linguists and challenge them and broaden and deepen them. Children who are fluent French speakers, she can really provide for them in a much more individualised way. But children who are talented linguists, maybe French isn't, a language for them, but they have a really good aptitude for learning languages, and she can then provide some really bespoke challenges for them because she has that time to do that now. And I think, speaking to our French teacher here, she's really keen to get in with certain groups of children because what she notices is that those children who are talented linguists sometimes are the children who struggle in other areas of their curriculum. And so what she really wants to be able to do is give those children children that talent and that enjoyment and that sense of, that self-esteem which comes from being really good at a subject. And, that's where she hasn't had the time to do that before, whereas now that gives her the time to do it.
But equally, I suppose, for those children who struggle or linguistically struggle, whatever, or struggle with French or with language acquisition, she can also support them.
Yes, because we
in a much more bespoke
way, but in a much more holistic way, because actually it's not about the teaching of French. That French is the medium through which we deliver this part of the curriculum. It's about modern foreign languages, which is much broader than just learning a language. It is linguistic skills, particularly at a primary level. It's about being an effective communicator, about seeing yourself as an effective communicator and having the confidence to know that if I go into any situation with any group of people, I can communicate with them effectively. And so actually it's about the French teacher feeding into the other areas of the curriculum as well that use similar linguistic skills. But also then you can talk about how your music teacher comes into that picture too, because there are skills there, your listening skills and your ability to isolate sounds and replicate sounds that are feeding in there too.
Same as art, the same principles would apply right across the specialist range.
Totally.
Okay, so let's talk about the children a little bit. How do you think the children's experience will be? I don't know if you can paint a picture of what that might be.
The children's experience is going to be much more of the things that they enjoy. No one really some people do. That's not fair. Some people do enjoy sitting there and just being given information in a passive kind of a way. But actually, most people don't. Most people enjoy it more when you are trying to use that knowledge in meaningful contexts. I think, firstly, actually, they enjoy getting the knowledge much more because it's coming at them in a way that they like through videos and stuff. And also they're having to, and we've noticed this as class teachers already, they're having to engage much more at that point. There aren't points in the day where you've got a bit of an opportunity as a child to kind of sit at the side and kind of have a bit of a relax as someone's kind of talking at you. Because when someone's talking at you, you actually have to take individual responsibility for manipulating how that's coming at you. So the children are exhausted because they're working much, much harder. But then also they've got more time in that application phase. And in that application phase and that creative phase at the top, they're drawing on lots of different things. So they're not seeing art in a box. Art happens at 7:15 on a Tuesday in the art room. That's art. ICT happens on a Wednesday at 8 o'clock in the ICT suite. I'm done my ICT. Do you know, they're being asked to draw those things together to solve problems. And so what you're encouraging is that creativity with the children, which is, in order to problem solve, I'm going to just, I'm solving the problem, say, in maths, but I'm not just going to draw on my maths knowledge. I might draw on something that I've thought about in music or something that I've thought about in art. And so I'm taking things and I'm making links between my knowledge and my experiences, which is promoting that creativity. But it's about endeavour, isn't it? When we're problem solving and we're endeavouring and you say, we just keep trying and we just keep going. Well, that's not really what endeavour is, because you just keep trying and you keep doing the same thing, you're going to get the same result. You don't move forward. So it's about spotting patterns and making links and asking questions. And we are putting children in situations now much more where they're having to do those things. And so rather than endeavour just being something that happens in assembly on a Monday morning, it's now something that we're actually really promoting through everything that we do.
It's bringing the values right into the base of the curriculum.
Because the other thing that that the children are going to start to see much more as they're working in this kind of environment in this kind of a way is things like their collaboration and the equality and the respect. Because I, have strengths. There are certain things that I am good at. You've got other strengths and things that you're good at. Now, in order to solve a problem, I need some of the things that I'm good at, but I also need some of the things that you're good at. So we need to work together in order to get the outcome that we need and that we want. So that's collaboration, but it's also it's respect. I respect what I'm good at. I respect you for what you're good at, and I value those things equally. It's not my thing is the most important thing. I'm going to do this on my own. No, I need to work with other people, and to do that.
And I think it kind of sounds very similar to the kind of COVID response that we see in the UK. The way that around the world really, we see different professionals being drawn in.
Yes.
In the response to this pandemic.
Exactly that. So we're talking broadly here about education. Education in a post-pandemic world. Well, it's about giving our children the skills that they need in this world for any challenge that they face, and that example's exactly right, isn't it? That you don't see so COVID. It's a medical condition, but the response to it is not purely medical. It's partly medical, but there's a lot of statistics going on. What do they tell us? There's that your psychology comes in there, like how can we get people to do what we need them to do in order to respond? All these different disciplines coming together, and that's what we're kind of teaching our children to do. We're teaching our children to see a problem in a broad way,
and a multidisciplinary
way, and also to know that I can go to the person who's really good at that,
negotiate
those things, and work with other people to come to a collective, solution.
So it has some very broad principles. It's very exciting, and of course, throughout the series, we'll be exploring different aspects of the new model as it kind of emerges and as it becomes personalised to the teachers and the children. So thank you very much, Hannah.
No, thank you.
And that does bring us to the end of this particular episode. We hope you've enjoyed it. If you have enjoyed it, please like and share, and do join us for the rest of them. Thank you very much.